Good morning, everybody. I'm Dr. Jen here in my messy basement, here for Friday Night Live, Friday Morning Live. I keep calling it Friday Night Live. Excited to share some holiday tips for you. So make sure when you join in that you comment or send me a message in the chat if you have any questions, anything directly you would like me to discuss. Please feel free to share them there. And so I'm Dr. Jen. I'm a lifestyle medicine doctor. I'm a pediatrician, pediatric intensive care physician. I've been a physician for close to 30 years now. And my passion is making medicine joyful. I have moved from the ICU and I do urgent care currently, but I also have a small practice focused on lifestyle medicine where I help people reverse chronic diseases using food, movement, stress management, sleep, personal connection, avoidance of substances, and joy. So the lifestyle medicine pillars plus joy. I call it joyful medicine. And my goal is to change 1,000 lives this year before the end of the year. So make sure and share, comment on some of my videos. Let me know if you've learned anything from the things that I've shared in the past over the course of this year, or if you're new to finding me, please let me know that too. I love connecting and I love answering questions that people have, making science practical and usable every day because I find that often wellness gets so complicated. There's so many rules that we think that we have to follow, and where really the simplest things make the biggest deal. So, as the holiday season approaches, I thought it was a great time to have a discussion on how to stay healthy through the holidays. I like to call it a marathon. It is a marathon. We're entering the holiday marathon session because we start with, you know, Thanksgiving is coming up. We're gearing up for that holiday travel. And then it rolls right into, Christmas and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and the New Year. And it just, again, it rolls and rolls. There's foods and parties and planning and shopping and all of that. And often our wellness gets put to the back put on the back burner. We're like, "Oh, I'll deal with that in January." But I wanna give you some practical tips to use here for family as well. I think with the holiday, often we lose the structure of the day, and that can be really, disruptive for children sometimes. It's exciting, but also sometimes it tends to be overstimulating. And those dietary patterns, we tend to fall off, and that adds to the disruption and the anxiety sometimes, and the behavior that occurs sometimes over the holidays. So how do we provide that structure for our children and for ourselves? So I will get started shortly. I'm trying to see what time is it. It's 9:01. Maybe I'll muse on a few minutes longer. So I thought of this topic because year after year I'm always talking about to people about healthy lifestyle, and it always comes up, oh, I'll start in January. And that's the pattern that we tend to follow in I don't know, in America, in the United States, that the new year, there's New Year's resolutions, but really when I like to look at it, I think that we have patterns of wellness and we create some structure around that. And when we have some structure and some patterns and fallbacks and environments, then it makes it easy to maintain it all the way through. And I think that joy is really important when we talk about wellness. We should be finding joy in those healthy habits. And how can we create that joy in those healthy habits? And that's what I help people do, because I think that it's so much more important than a diet. We tend to focus on diets. And when we diet, it's a short-term solution as opposed to having a pattern of eating that supports your health all the way around. And when we have that pattern of eating, which I'll talk a little bit more about, it carries us through to every stage of our life, whether it is, through the holiday season, maybe it's on vacation, maybe it's through, childbirth and beyond, through perimenopause and menopause. And this pattern of eating and lifestyle can really be sustaining for the long term. I like to call it joyful medicine because joy is so important. It often gets left out of the discussion. We feel like we have to discipline or white knuckle our way through, and that's no way to live life. I think that it's so important to find joy in every step of the process. And we have joy within us, and often it gets suppressed or pushed aside. We don't remember because we're so surrounded by all of these messages, and also the speed, the technology, the rush of modern life. So let's get into it. So holiday season is here. My favorite time of year. I will say that, I as an ICU doctor and a mom with young children, I used to get wrapped up in the whole frenzy of it, right? Having to go visit family, different places, travel here, travel there, get gifts for the kids, plan all the meals because I love everything in life revolves around eating and cooking for me. I love eating and I love to make delicious meals for to share with people. And, sometimes in that frenzy, you forget to take care of yourself. You forget to drink water. You forget to, make sure that you're sleeping well or getting outside and getting some fresh air. So the first thing is like remembering the reason behind the season, really when we talk about this time of year, it's so wonderful because we get to connect with friends and family in a way that's less structured than we have. It gives us an excuse to kind of put, work on the back burner and really focus on friends and family. And that's really what the key is of this season. I think that's the most important message is it's really the connection more than the gift, more than the meal, more than, whatever it is. It's really that connection. So leaning into that reason of the season, and with children, it's really important too to remember that that's why that's the whole point, right? To enjoy their friends and family and grandparents and aunts and uncles and do that and remember that that's the most important thing, not necessarily a gift or a toy, but it's that. So taking that time to really slow down and appreciate that and recognize those traditions and things like that with the children, because then it cements that in with them. They don't necessarily remember, all of the frenzy around the holiday or, a specific gift necessarily, but they do remember that feeling, and that feeling is so important. So that's one of the first thing is just to remember the reason. I think about when my son was I think he was 3, and, maybe he was 4, I think he was 3, and, we were all excited to get him this bicycle because he wanted a bicycle, but he also wanted flip-flops. We just moved to Florida. We spent all this time ordering the special red bicycle, and we were all excited when he opened it up, and he was like, he saw the bicycle, he's like, "Oh, cool," but then he opened the present with the flip-flops, and he was like, "Flip-flops," and do you know, I took him with me to round. I had to round that morning at the hospital. When I took him to the hospital to round, and everybody was like, "What did you get? What did Santa bring? What did Santa bring you for Christmas?" And he was like, he didn't say red bicycle. He said flip-flops. Those dollar flip-flops that I got from Old Navy, that was what he was most excited about. So just to remember, it's sometimes it's like the smallest things that make kids, that give our kids so much excitement and joy. So just keeping that in mind, I always think of that, and I remind him every year that he was more excited about the flip flops than his bicycle. I thought that was really funny. So talk a little bit about why kids struggle. I mean, I think kids struggle around the holidays the same reason we do. There's the lack of structure. They leave school at that where they have their structure that they've had, and they've lost that. The sleep is disrupted. We tend to be eating more Christmas cookies or holiday cookies and treats and sweets, and that sugar rush is something to reckon with. I think also they feel the stress that we are exhibiting. When we get wrapped up in the frenzy, traveling. Not in their regular. In home environment, the regular routine. So all of these things, social overstimulation, sometimes they're excited, but it can be overwhelming. Sometimes if they're seeing relatives and friends that they haven't seen in a long time or that they don't necessarily remember, because you have to think their short life, they may not remember from, year to year. The other big thing is, at least here in the Northeast, it wasn't as much of an issue in, when I lived in Florida, but in the Northeast, there's less time outside. And so that fresh air is really important. That time in nature helps reset our nervous system, which I often talk about with my adult patients as well. It's really important to connect with nature as much as possible. And, in this modern time, also we're spending more time on the screens, which can is detrimental all the way around. They provide us so much and enabled me to connect with people across the world and do presentations like that. But by the same token, it leaves us disconnected. And we know that that screen time can have a serious effect on our mental health. Especially for children, we know that prolonged screen time can be associated with anxiety and other things. So all of these things, come into play when we talk about holiday health and maintaining it. So I think that one of the best things I think all overall, when we're talking about children, we're talking about adults, when we're talking about ourselves even, is structure, and consistency. So where can keep that structure in the day? So obviously, if you're traveling, you're at an event, you may not be able to maintain the bedtime as strictly, but try to stick with it as much as possible because that sleep is so important. I will say that many times I even recognized in my own son so many times when he was spinning out of control. I call him he's very spirited. He's 22 now, but as a child, he had a lot of energy. And I noticed when the behavior was challenging, a lot of times it was because he was tired. He needed that nap, which sometimes was missing if we were traveling, and he needed his bedtime. He really needed to go to bed at the right time and have that proper sleep. So just kind of something to keep in mind. How can you make sure that your children are kind of as much as possible keeping that same sleep schedule and those hours of sleep because it's hard to make it up. That behavior can be challenging, when they're not getting enough sleep. They can be irritable. It can be really hard for them to manage these social situations if they are coming from a position of less sleep. So that's one thing. Um, another thing is the screen time, I mentioned. So as much as we can limit that screen time, I know sometimes if you're traveling, it's a great way distraction. But other things you can bring to keep them distracted. I mean, we didn't have screens when my kids were young, so we used to bring tons and tons of toys and games and things like that. So portable things that you can think that can keep them entertained and distracted, but also using their mind and less screen time as much as possible. Um, Getting outside. So that's another, as I mentioned, nature is a great way to just reset your nervous system. So connecting with nature, looking at the sky, paying attention to the patterns of the wind, looking at the trees, that really is very powerful when it comes to, we talk about our health in general, but for children also. And also in this time of year where our days are shorter, getting outside in daylight is really important to help reset our circadian rhythm and help us sleep better at night. So it's even better, the best time, anytime you can get outside is good, but getting outside first thing in the morning is really good to give that body that reset. But getting outside in general, anytime you can squeeze in some exercise is also good. So I think about, when can I squeeze in? If I can't keep my regular, pattern of I love my morning walks, but sometimes, things are happening and I don't get a chance to do that. But can I squeeze in like a 10-minute walk or stretch or, you know, I spin sometimes or something, a little 10-minute exercise snack somewhere throughout the day is good. And it's great with children. It's a great way to combine the two things. Maybe you could take a walk after a meal with the kids or, plan like a dance party or something like that. So thinking about keeping that exercise going. Um, I'm going to talk about a little bit more of this tomorrow. I have a workshop for women, or really anybody in midlife and beyond that's struggling with insulin resistance or diabetes or prediabetes and how to stay on track for the holidays. So I will go in more depth on that workshop tomorrow. So if you want to register for that, I'll put the link below for that too. Um, but the sleep, the movement, the outside in nature, that's a great way to reset. And now I'll move on to my favorite thing, which is food. So I'm not one to say skip the treats, right? I think that you should do what you love, and it's not a matter of what you leave out, but it's actually a matter of what you include and how you can protect your body. I like to call it and put an armor around your body because truthfully, when you feed yourself with nourishing foods first, and when you make that the center, then really it makes you more resilient and able to deal with the other things that you may be consuming over the holidays that may not be your normal pattern of eating. We tend to consume higher fat, higher sugar, higher salty foods. And these do take a toll, which again, I'll talk about some more tomorrow, but that's something to think about. How can you protect yourself during this time and provide a little body armor for your children and yourself? So with children, again, I mentioned the sweets can have a negative effect because it gives you that high energy and then the crash. So then that crash may make them more irritable and that high energy, is high energy. So how can you balance that? Well, it's making sure that you consume enough fiber. and fiber is one of the things I always talk about. So fruits and vegetables, whole grains, beans and legumes, nuts and seeds, those are the foods that have fiber in them. So how can you make that the star? So ways that I think about it is making sure that you're having some green leafy vegetables every day. So maybe plan a salad, maybe make a big salad that you can, have over the course of the time. With children, I love trying fresh veggies with different types of dips. That's a great way to get them to eat something that's a little more fiber rich. Maybe having some nuts and seeds around. Nuts with dried fruit is great. Trail mix, is a great way to get kids to eat some nuts and seeds and other things. So thinking about adding things like that. Making sure that you plan the snacks. That's really important because it may be a bit long time. I don't know. Sometimes you're going somewhere and the dinner is much later than you thought, or the party's later. So making sure that you think about those snacks throughout there. One of the things I love to have as a snack is peanut butter and jelly. My kids love to have that too, or seed butter and jelly, or something along those lines. Maybe peanut butter and banana is another great one. Apples, oranges, those little clementines and little hand-sized oranges for kids. Those are great snacks. So just think about where you can add those and put those around. And the thing is, I always say environment is more important than willpower. So when you think about it, having that stuff front and center. So of course you can have cookies and other things around, but if you have the fruit front and center, like I always say, a bowl of fruit, you're more likely to eat it yourself, and the kids are more likely to go for it. Maybe have some cut up fruit in the refrigerator. Just think of ways that you can incorporate those foods because again, they're like armor for your body. Literally, they're better for your gut health. They're better for your mood. They're good for your brain. They provide that steady energy, which is important. So you can avoid those ups and downs, which will help with um, mood, irritability and things like that. So just something to think about. Uh, as I mentioned, it helps your gut health. And just thinking about, yeah, how you can have those fresh fruits and vegetables front and center. The other big thing is hydration. Sometimes we forget to drink water. I myself am one of those people as I drink my coffee here. So making sure that that you're thinking about that hydration over the course of the holidays, drinking more water because you tend to be higher stress, higher energy. So you actually need to drink more water to maintain your metabolism, keep everything flowing well, and just support your body through this season. We talked about making sure that you have snacks available so that you know. And just remembering, I think the biggest thing I always say, in fact, if you saw my video yesterday, it's like with as far as children go, it's the first time you've ever done it before, right? It's the first time you've done it with that particular child. So giving yourself grace and, kind of planning for some ups and downs with emotions and energy, over the course of the holidays is fine. But I think if you arm yourself with these tools, getting outside, movement, protecting your sleep, hydrating well, putting fiber first, you really can, arm yourself and be ready for the holiday season and what comes beyond it so that you're not, you know, draining yourself over the holiday season. You continue to fill your battery so that you enter 2026 on a good note. So again, I am going to be doing a more in-depth workshop tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m. Focus more for adult and metabolic health. If you want to hop in on that, I'll post the link in this description here. So feel free. If you have questions about what I covered here or something I didn't cover that you would like an answer on, please comment below. And I'll be here every Friday at 9 a.m. for Joyful Medicine Live. So hope to see you next Friday. Thank you for watching.